43. 43 missing children were found just before Christmas, recovered in a single coordinated operation stretching across North Florida. Some were runaways, some were taken by non custodial parents, and some were pulled out of the situation so dangerous law enforcement is choosing their words very carefully. This is what we know about the operation that quietly recovered 43 kids back from danger and what it reveals about the system that failed them in the first place. I'm Liane, and this is Motive Means Opportunity. And here we want to talk about today about these children and the failed system and the rare moments when that system actually steps up and finds them. Today, we're going to go inside the Florida operation that just didn't just make arrests, it brought 43 children home. And what I also want to highlight before we watch this news clip is that before I mentioned it casually just before Christmas, because I didn't have quite the time to report on it yet, nobody had covered this story other than the local news in Florida. And to this moment, only one channel, actually, I take that back, two now, Criminally Obsessed and Tony Bruschi's podcast, have reported this incident. And I wanted us to think about what that says as a society collectively when the true crime community fails to bring to light trafficking incidences of kids who were recovered, who were in danger, and it gets unnoticed. That is beyond sad. But let's listen into this report.
Well, first tonight, dozens of missing children reunited with their families. Among those, 3 from Okaloosa County, a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, and 1-year-old.
Now, this comes after Operation Northern Lights, which was led by U.S. Marshals. Our Natalie Williamson has your late reporting tonight. And Natalie, they're calling this the most successful missing child operation ever in northern Florida.
Yeah, that's right, Lenny and Cameron. According to the marshals, officers went door to door, scoured social media, and made phone calls to narrow down where the kids could be. And after 12 days, 43 children were found all across Florida. This video, taken by the Leon County Sheriff's Office in Florida, shows federal agents and law enforcement officers.
Okay, I want to stop right here. This woman here, this sheriff, is a hero. We're going to cover an interview she did after, as I said, I mentioned nobody was covering it. They decided 2 weeks before they were going to rescue these kids. 2 weeks before they decided they were going to try to find these kids. And in 2 weeks, they recovered 43 children. I'd like to know, they decided on their own what we're going to do, what the United States and Canadian governments in America are going to do to try to put task force together. Because if you could imagine what they could do in 2 weeks, and boy, I'm not saying it was easy. It took a lot of police, a lot of agencies, a lot of coordination, but it was done in a short amount of time and very planned and executed in a very short amount of time. And I personally would like to see more of these teams put together for missing children. What do you think?
Working behind the scenes to rescue dozens of critically missing children.
This was the largest missing child operation ever conducted in northern Florida, and we're very proud to say that 43 children will now be home safe for the holidays.
According to the U.S. Marshals, through Operation Northern Light, children ranging from 1.5 to 17 years old were reunited with their families. Of those include a 1, 15, and 17-year-old missing out of Okaloosa County. The 1 and 17-year-old were rescued by U.S. Marshals outside Jackson, Mississippi. The agency says one person was arrested for interfering with child custody. U.S. Marshals say the 15-year-old and the child's abductor were found in Ocala. The adult was arrested and charged with interference with child custody.
Not that far away. Not that far away.
Greg Legedal, acting U.S. Marshal for the Northern District of Florida, say the children that were saved were critically missing, meaning they were at risk of violent crimes or other serious harms like drugs, sexual exploitation, domestic violence, or crime exposure.
During the course of the operation, we ended up recovering children from multiple states, including Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana. We had a lot of these cases that could potentially lead to charges of human trafficking, of interference with child custody, and just a lot of really, really bad situations that these children had found themselves in.
Legedal says this wouldn't have been possible without the help of state law enforcement and local agencies, including Pensacola PD. Legedal says the biggest takeaway from this operation is to always know what your child is doing, who they are associating with, and be involved in their lives.
Yeah, be involved in their lives. We've seen that over and over again when the children go missing, that there had been an estrangement occurring in one aspect or another from parts of the family. But the takeaway from this is that this wasn't one agency stumbling across a few kids by accident. This was planned, a multi-agency sweep focused on locating missing and endangered children across northern Florida. The operation was known as Northern Lights. In some reports, pulled together the local sheriff's office, state investigators, and federal partners working behind the scenes with databases and intel. For days, officers went address by address, lead by lead, checking homes, hotels, and places where the missing youth are known to surface. What's important here is the intent. This wasn't just we'll keep an eye out while we're doing other things. This was we're going to go find these kids. And that's what it takes. That's what it takes. But I want you to also notice it was simple boots on the ground work. Simple boots on the ground. It didn't take search warrants and tracking cell phones and, following people and surveillance. It just took boots on the ground. Runaways, custody pursuits, high-risk environments, trafficking, it said. When you hear 43 kids missing, it's easy to picture one scenario. But in reality, these cases fell into various categories, from runaways escaping homes that may not be safe, to kids caught in custody disputes and taken across county lines, and children living in environments with abuse, drugs, and or exploitation. And it's just unfathomable that this still goes on. And it took one agency to really do 2 weeks of boots on the ground, digging and commit to finding these kids to bring their success. Let's watch the next video. So we're going to play this clip, like I said, in a second. But what I want to just stress first is that you're going to notice that law enforcement in this clip says some things that are pretty crucial, that not every child was found chained in a basement. That doesn't mean that they were safe where they were, however. And some were people who had zero legal rights to them. Others were in homes where officers decided this was not where the child should be. And what law enforcement isn't saying out loud is, if you listen closely, there's a pattern in the language. The phrases you hear here are like recovered from dangerous situations, high-risk environments, possible exploitation. Phrases that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting suggest that the kids were around drugs, violence, and potentially being groomed or trafficked. Let's listen in.
Shortly following my statements, we're going to hear statements from 5 figures, the acting United States Marshal for Assistant Special Agent in charge, Dean Gill, Homeland Security Investigations, Under Sheriff Ron Cady, Liane County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Rachel Buell, Liane County Sheriff's Office, Brad McVeigh, the Statewide Prosecutor's Office, Office of the Attorney General, and Commissioner Martin. Before we get started with statements, I'd like to volunteer if they'd like to come forward and say who they are and what they
Good morning, and thank you for being here today. First, I want to say to the Marshal, thank you for this opportunity for making this operation to rescue my children. My name is Mark Glass, and I'm the Florida Law Enforcement Commissioner. This is what we do as part of our law enforcement. We are proud to have a state. We have a law enforcement state, free state of Florida, but we also have proud to have legislators and leaders, such as the governor and cabinet, that support us in this role of rescuing children and going after the bad guys. What we got to do as a community.
Listen, this is their audio. It's horrible. I apologize. So we're going to listen just for a couple more minutes. If it doesn't get clearer than this, then I'm going to bypass this. But I want you to consider this before I decide to play a little bit more of it, because it's just not very clear here. But I want you to think about this, the hard question that nobody at the podium is going to answer if you do listen to this clip on your own, if I don't play it here in a second. What did it take for them to decide that they were going to put 2 weeks into this? Because as one of the sheriffs in an interview that I will cover in a live mentions that they just decided to do it 2 weeks in advance. What did it take? And they've committed to doing it again, but 2 weeks in a year is really not sufficient. So what happened? What did it take for them to say, "Hey, let's go after these kids"? These kids existed in databases, their names and faces were in reports, families were waiting, and yet it took a special operation to connect the dots. This doesn't mean the officers on the ground don't care. They clearly do, but you can see it from their faces at the podium that it raises questions about understaffing, missing person units, overloaded caseworkers, and how many other kids are still waiting for their operation to be named and for the police on the ground to say, "Okay, let's do this." This should be a call to action that we need more of these operations. They should be running 24 effing 7. Operations like this prove something important when the agencies are resourced, organizations and organized and focused. The kids can be found. Here's what you can do. You can pay attention to local missing kids child alerts, not just national headlines. Share official flyers from law enforcement, not rumor threads. And if something feels off when a child in your orbit is documented missing or something is weird about their home environment, report it. See it, say something, and continue to put the pressure on police agencies. If you'd like me to focus more on this case in a live, please let me know. I'm going to go back to covering this a little bit more. If it doesn't get clear, we're going to end it here. But let's see if we can get a clearer audio on this.
To ensure that we are doing our best effort in helping find children, runaways, people are human trafficking. This team that you see behind me here with us, also Attorney General, State Prosecutors, also the Marshal Service agents, this is what they do too. We work on finding kids all the time. We had successful operations in the District of Florida with the U.S. Marshals out there, and now bringing it to the U.S. Marshals here for that great effort here with us. So I just want to say thank you for being here.
Okay. I'm going to let you go figure it out on your own because they are trying to clear this audio up, but it's not working. Thank you for being here. Tell me if you'd like us to cover more of this because we can definitely go into this deeper. Love and light.